have some student moderators with us this afternoon to kind of lead the discussion. But first, before we get started with anything, we have some welcoming remarks from Mayor Gavin Buckley.
And thank you all. Before I just read off some remarks to you, I want to say how honored I am that you've included me in this. I'm new to politics. When I was getting ready to run, I was told by the establishment to not worry about young people. Don't worry about millennials. They don't show up. They'll break your heart. I didn't listen, and I reached out to a lot of young people, and we had the highest under 25 voter turnout the city's ever seen. So thank you for this initiative today. Thank you for letting me be part of that. I'm very proud of what you're doing. So welcome to the webinar on voting and Latino and Latina youth participation. What a timely topic. I'm so glad you all tuned in because this is an important election, and I know what you are going to hear today will have an impact on your voting habits, which will serve you for your lifetime. This webinar will be moderated by two exceptional high school seniors. Our very own Harry Salmoran, a senior at Annapolis High School, and Jaslyn Lienzo from Bowie High School, who also volunteers at the Annapolis Immigration Justice Network. Let's get a little round of applause for those guys, can we? I want to start by thanking the broad group of elected and community representatives here today. They'll be introduced later by the student moderators, but it is impressive, the group of people that are going to speak to you about the importance of your vote as your voice. The city of Annapolis was incorporated in 1709. That means we have been around for some 312 years. For more than half of the time this city was incorporated, only white men could use their vote as their voice, because it wasn't until 1870, with the passage of the 15th Amendment, that all races could vote. Women have only had a voice for about a third of the city's history. Women got to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920. That's only 100 years ago. Until 1971, not every state accepted votes of people younger than 21. It was the passage of the 26th Amendment 49 years ago that guaranteed voting for everyone over the age of 18. That came about because young people were being sent overseas to die in Vietnam and couldn't even vote for the leadership who was sending them there. Suffragist Susan B. Anthony said, "Someone struggled for your right to vote." Then she said, "Now use it." And that brings me to where we are in 2020. As young people, many of you have the right to vote. But what do we see happening in many corners of the US? Efforts to deny people their vote through voter suppression and intimidation. This has not been a problem here in Maryland, but we are going to have to be sure we stay vigilant, because the integrity of our vote is what holds our republic together. Some of the ways people are preventing you from voting include voter ID laws, which have been adopted in 36 states and impact more than 21 million US citizens who do not have a government-issued photo ID. Also, purging voter rolls. While this can be a responsible government action to administer voting lists and keep them updated because people move or die or become ineligible, sometimes, though, these purges have a history of being used to discriminate against voters of color. Felony disenfranchisement. This is where a state bans felons from voting for life, not just while people are incarcerated. Because of racial bias in the criminal justice system, felony disenfranchisement laws disproportionately impact Black people, who often face harsher sentences than white people for the same offenses. Gerrymandering. We are in the middle of a Census 2020 right now, where all residents, not all citizens, all residents are counted so that representation by our elected officials at all levels of government can be determined. I encourage you to get your mums and dads to be sure they have filled out the 2020 census. We are coming close to the final deadline for the census at the end of this month. Once we have a population count, lines are drawn for legislative districts. When this is done properly, the lines reflect population changes and racial diversity. But some states use these lines to manipulate the outcomes of elections. But one of the ways that people disenfranchise themselves is by simply not showing up to vote. Thomas Jefferson said, "We do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate." Since 1982, the youth vote has been declining. The percentage of Hispanic voting has never topped 40%. That is 40% of the people eligible to vote. Some of you might be first-generation citizens, like I am. When you cast your ballot, you're voting not only for yourselves, but on behalf of your parents, your TOs and your TIAs. I said that with an Australian accent. Did that sound? You have to be their voice. The first ever Muslim representative in Congress, Keith Ellison, said, "Not voting is not a protest, it is a surrender." Today, you're going to learn a lot about the process for voting. We can tell you how to vote. We can't tell you how to vote. Well, I can, but but you're all savvy young people. You know how to use the internet, how to conduct your own research, how to think for yourself. When you entrust someone with your vote, you make them accountable to you, not only as an individual, but to your identity as a young person, as a Hispanic student. I leave you with this plea from an elected official, and here it is. Please vote. Thank you all, and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Buckley. We're happy to be here with all of you guys as well. Also joining us this afternoon is State Delegate Jocelyn Peña-Melnick, Board Education Member and LAYC Manager Ms. Sandra Shepard, and Centro de Ayuda's Mrs. Dalix Cruz.
We also have Board of Education at Large Ms. Carla Silverstrom, Outreach and Public Information Officer of Montgomery County Board of Elections, Dr. Gilberto Zayala, and CASA de Maryland Representative Dennis Perez with us. We're going to cover today representation and the importance of voting today. First, let's turn to Delegate Peña-Melnick. Delegate, as someone in our state legislature, why does representation matter, and why should students care to vote?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time and your effort, and for everyone here. I feel very honored. These are people that I love and respect. Nice to see you all. Representation matters. It matters because, for example, as a Black Latina myself, who was born in the Dominican Republic, when I am in a room, I bring that perspective into the room. When we're trying to look at bills and to think about how do those bills affect people, right? We have 6 million people in the state of Maryland. How does it affect everyone here? How, and when you start dissecting it and taking the layers off, how does it affect certain communities? I bring the perspective of an immigrant, of a, Afro-Latina myself, of a woman, of a mother, of a sister. So I give my voice to that policy. So when we were discussing in the General Assembly, whether or not to pass the DREAM Act, I brought that perspective, okay, as well, and from my community when we're discussing, driver's license for undocumented, I can bring that perspective. So representation matters because you need diversity. You need a diverse body so that we can make laws that apply and are fair to everyone. We must be in the room so that we are counted. And it matters so that my kids, I have 3 kids, they can see others that look like them. There's a saying that says that you can't be what you can't see, right? You need role models, and that is so important. Why is it important for young people to vote? Because there are 47 million 18 to 29-year-olds who are eligible to vote in the 2020 election, and 15 million of them have turned 18 since the last presidential election. So your voice matters. You can make a difference if you vote. You're taken seriously. People will not disrespect you. The issues you care about can come to light, and you are powerful, and you can do it, and we need you. You are the future, and there's so many of you. Don't take it for granted. There are countries that people die to exercise their right to vote. And it's free, and you can do it, and it's easy, and you can make a difference.
Thank you so much, Ms. Peña Melnick. Now, I want to ask Ms. Shepard, as someone who is so involved in her community, what is Prince George's doing to engage their young voters? And what do you say to people who are ineligible to vote but want to lift their voice?
So yes, I want to echo Ms. Jocelyn Melwick Peña, that I am so honored to be here with you guys. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. In terms of what is it that we're doing in Prince George's County, the Board of Education back in June of 2019 approved a policy that we provide our young people up to 3 days to have an excuse absent for them to engage in civil activities. We also have our social studies curriculum that allow them to learn about the government and structure and everything that has to do with the importance of voting, the importance of participating in different civic activities. As a county, I think that we are doing a lot of different campaigns at the school level, at the county level, to try to make sure that we provide ongoing information of where to vote, how to register for vote, how easy it is, what website you should be going to, where are the sites you could do the early voting, when is that happening? So we constantly utilizing our social media outlets via Facebook, Twitter, even commercials. If you listen to a Specifies, one of the music radios, you can hear a lot of these different commercials happening. So we have a lot of different things happening, but I do want to say that it is important for our young people to start learning early about what it is, the importance of voting, because it is true. I believe that our young people are the future of tomorrow. Young voters account for half of the voting population, making them the most powerful political force. And I don't think that many of our young people know this. Their political force is so strong that they can either sway an election. They decide who can win an election. So it's important for them to be engaged. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that even though that they have this powerful force, they are not the ones that really are doing the voting. As my colleague just said, in 2016, only 19% of the young people ages 18 to 24 cast their ballots, as opposed to 49% of the people that are ages 45 to 65 years old. So that's important to understand how important it is for us to register and vote. As for me personally, it is important because it was not a right given to me. It was something that I had to go through the process of becoming a USA citizen, being an immigrant from El Salvador. I had to take a test. I had to be able to show that I could be a citizen and then have the right to vote. So for me, it's a privilege to vote. It is a responsibility that I have to many of my family members who cannot vote. to many of my community individuals who, because of their status, are not able to go cast their vote. So it's a responsibility that I have. And I think that your other question was, what can we do if we cannot go and cast our vote in November? Well, we still have an opportunity to do our census. We still have, and you don't have to be a USA citizen, but you still have an opportunity to say, you know what, I am here, I matter, and I need to be counted. So young people, do the census for your mother, for your auntie, for your tío, tu tía, tu abuelita que no sabe, do the census. Because if you cannot go and cast the vote, you are going to tell people for the next 10 years that we are here, we're not going nowhere. So we do need representation. That's another way that young people can get involved. And yes, I encourage you guys, get yourself, do your research, know what the facts of who you're voting for. And yes, talk to other people, but at the end of the day, just educate yourself because that decision is yours. Yep. Henry, you in mute.
Thank you, Ms. Shepard. Next, we turn to Delix Cruz with Centro de Ayuda, or Center of Help. Delix, as a college student, why do you view voting so critical?
I think it's important for us to raise our voices, man. As I was doing my research, I found that there is 60 million Hispanics here in the States. And this year is going to be, we're going to be the largest ethnic minority group eligible to vote. That's 32 million votes, guys. Like, I definitely think that it's a privilege, it's a right. You know, we have a platform. We definitely need to like speak out. There are these issues that are happening. And if we don't show up, other people will vote. And guess what? The change that we want to happen won't happen. So I definitely think that it's important that we're having this webinar and to keep inspiring people for sure.
Thank you so much. And I completely agree, especially with the different changes we have. We have such a voice right now and we need to use it. Now let's turn to Mrs. Silvestre. Mrs. Silvestre, what is Montgomery County doing right now to engage our young voters? And how can this help shape education policy locally?
I think that, well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I want to emphasize we're doing a lot of the same things that Prince George's County Public Schools is doing, but the take-home message is that we're not doing enough. We need to do more. You know, fortunately in Maryland, you can register to vote when you get your driver's license. That's very important access. Somebody likes what I'm saying. Also, thanks to the work of my colleague, Dr. Zelaya, who you're going to hear from, he has been promoting for our middle school students and our high school students to participate, to work in the polls during the elections. And now I don't want to steal his thunder, but he has been extremely successful in getting those people hooked, engaged, interested in working elections. And as a result, he likes to brag, and I like to brag with him. We have some of the youngest poll workers in the state of Maryland. And it's really about that effort that he has put into here in Montgomery County to involve middle schoolers and high schoolers. You think they're too young, they don't want to do it. But if you ask them, if you invite them to participate, if you make it easy for them to participate, they're going to get hooked. They're going to get engaged and more active, more aware once they turn 18 and become voters themselves. So kudos to him. I know he's going to tell us a lot about the mechanics of voting and how to do that. So I just wanted to give him a shout out because he has carried that program here in Montgomery County. You know, I work at Montgomery College, and so we've been doing a lot of get out the vote efforts. This past week was National Voter Registration Week. So we did a lot of activities, promote the vote among our students. And In terms of education policy, you know, you are all young people, you just finished high school or in college or finishing college. Think about all the things that you would like to see different in your schools. That's what the people that you are electing right now will decide. There's Board of Education races in every ballot in the state of Maryland. They decide how the money is spent. They decide what days you go to school. They decide so many important decisions. We're trying to bring more pre-K programs to Maryland because most of our Latino kids entering kindergarten are not ready. Over 60% of the Latino children entering kindergarten are not ready. So they need more pre-K programs. The people that you elect to the Board of Education and to the state legislature, they're going to make those decisions that are so important for our community. If you don't, you let other people that do vote elect people that make decisions for you. And they don't know what you need. They don't know what's important to your community. So tu voto es tu voz. You gotta use it. I became a citizen 13 years ago. And now I'm an elected official in Montgomery County. I know my vote is a privilege. I use it, and I use my microphone to try to encourage other people to participate. This is our country, and we have to participate and make it even better than it is today. Thank you.
Let's switch up a little bit here and talk about how we can actually vote this year. Dr. Ayala, can you tell us how to vote and the important deadlines to vote?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I want to, I feel privileged being with the panelists this afternoon. It is kind of crazy here and kind of busy. Obviously, the biggest thing in order to participate in a franchise, you must be registered to vote. And this webinar couldn't be more timely. It's actually tomorrow. So tomorrow's the voter registration deadline. Tomorrow's the 13th, it's Tuesday. And there's a lot of mechanisms in which you could register to vote. One of the things we did is recognize the concept of the digital divide, because not everyone has a laptop or a desktop or Wi-Fi at home, but I'm pretty sure you guys got a cell phone. So if you're TikToking, stop doing it for a moment. And what you need to do is text the word vote, V-O-T-E, vote, to 77788. Vote to 77788. And it's going to send you the Maryland Online Voter Registration application link. Now, you do need to have a driver's license, permit, or ID, but just as Mayor Buckley initiated the webinar, we understand and we respect that not everyone has that. So you could go to elections.maryland.gov, elections.maryland.gov, and you could download the corresponding Maryland voter registration application. However, there's a lot of information on the state website, but if you go to the Montgomery County Board of Elections website, it's a little bit easier. It's 777vote.org, 777vote.org. And it's prominent on our website. And we have the voter registration application in English, in Spanish, and we work with the State Board of Elections to translate them into traditional and simplified Chinese and Korean. Montgomery County has 4 out of the 10 most diverse cities in America. And that's Rockville, Gaithersburg, Silver Spring, and Germantown. But also there's White Oak and Aspen Hill, Glenmont, Wheaton. But nonetheless, it's a customer service concept of having these forms in different languages. And so whether you download the application, make sure that it's postmarked by tomorrow. The post office closes at 5 p.m. So please do not drop off this letter after 5 p.m. in one of the blue collection bins or your neighborhood mailbox, because it's going to be postmarked the 14th of October, which means that it's not timely, and your corresponding local board of elections is not obligated to process it because it's not timely. They will process it after certification, but the whole premise of you applying is to be registered. So you make sure that you walk that letter to your post office and just don't you say, I need a date stamp on this, or go directly to your local board of elections, and you could go to elections.maryland.gov to identify the closest location. Now, once you're registered to vote, okay, you've done that, you got the notification, we highly recommend as election administrators to vote by mail. Obviously, the reason why we're meeting virtually is because of COVID-19, and to mitigate exposure, voting by mail is one of the mechanisms in which it facilitates your access into the franchise. Now, once again, turn off your TikTok. You could text the letters VBM to 77788. V for Victor, well, actually V for vote, B for buy, and M for mail. VBM to 77788. Anyone in the entire state can use the text. It's not just Montgomery County. So VBM to 77788. That deadline is the following Tuesday, October 20th. That is not a postmark deadline. That's a very important nuance. The voter registration is a postmark deadline. So if you get it postmarked by the post office, we are legally obligated to process it even if it's 2 days after the fact or 3 days after the fact. The request to vote by mail, I need to have it on my desk physically on the 20th or your corresponding Board of Elections. So that's important nuance. Now, if you're voting by mail, don't sit on it until November 3rd. We are actually canvassing ballots. So if you want to see a live canvas, and whatever that means for you guys, if you understood the process, we have bipartisan teams processing those ballots. You could go to our website, once again, 777vote.org, and you could join our live stream and view it from the comfort of your home. Now, if you're voting by mail, every corresponding county has ballot drop boxes. If you have a concern using the post office, you could use this. Now, for Montgomery County specifically, this is Montgomery County, if you text the word box and your zip code in Montgomery County, I apologize, I couldn't do it for the whole state, just Montgomery County, box and your zip code, it will give you the 4 closest ballot drop boxes and the post office locator to find the location. Now, everyone in the other counties, you could use box and your zip code, but I would use the post office locator, but the boxes are specific to Montgomery County. Once you've deposited your ballot in the post office or in one of the boxes, drop boxes, then you're good to go. However, if you miss the voter registration deadline, you could leverage same-day voter registration during early voting or on election day. Early voting in the state of Maryland is from October 26th through November 2nd, okay? Montgomery County has 11 early voting centers. Every county has their unique numbers depending as it pertains to their voter, how many voters they have registered in their database. Montgomery County has over 675,000 registered voters. So we have 11, a Kent County and Eastern Shore could have 1 or 2. So check your corresponding website. I'm certain you guys know how to Google, and just Google Prince George's Board of Elections, Howard County Board of Elections, turn off your TikTok, find that information, and then also figure out if you're going to vote in person. However, you can register to vote leveraging same-day registration. Bring a Maryland ID, driver's license, or permit, but if you don't have those forms of ID, state ID, you could bring a bank statement, utility bill, a governmental documentation with your name and current address corresponding to that county, okay? And if you're voting during early voting, once again, it's from the 26th of October through the 2nd of November. And the last effort you have to vote, let's say you are registered or not, is on election day. And because of the pandemic, under Governor Hogan's proclamation, we have consolidated, specifically in Montgomery County, the 250 polling places to 39 vote centers. Every county will have a unique number of vote centers. Similar to early voting, you are not tied to your specific vote center. So you could go to any vote center if you live in Montgomery County in Montgomery County. I highly do not recommend, number one, voting in another county. So I know, for example, people may say Tacoma Park, we have people that come from the district. You live in DC, you vote in DC. You live in Prince George's, highly recommend you vote in Prince George's. It just complicates things. And at any time, if your name doesn't appear on the voter registration roster or database when they're checking you in, then the chief judge is trained to provide you a provisional ballot. Now, for whatever reason, when people say the P word, provisional, they have some negative connotation behind it. It's not. We're going to count it if we find that you are registered. It could be there's an administrative error on our end that we couldn't find you, or it could be number one, that you requested to vote by mail and decided and you changed your mind. If you do that, you're going to have to vote provisional. There's no way around it. Even if you bring the ballot with you in hand and you beg the election judge that I don't want to vote my mail-in ballot, you're going to have to vote provisionally. It's going to add another 20 to 30 minutes to your voting experience. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to hang around in a precinct for an hour. Okay, so vote by mail. If you don't do that, vote on election day or during early voting. Use the tools, turn off your TikTok, make a vote plan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zelaya. I know it's so important because a lot of people really don't understand how easy it is to register and how easy it is to get informed about how to vote and how to do this and where you can do this. So I think that's really important for the youth to know. Real quick, before anything, I want to pass it back to Dalix just because I know she had more to say, and I talk a lot. I accidentally continued, but I want her to make sure that she gets a moment to speak because she had more to say about the importance of voting, which I think is really important for our youth. So I'm going to pass it back to her.
Thank you so much. Yes, hi everyone. I'm an Arundel resident here in Maryland. I'm also a college student. First, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. I really appreciate your time. This is a very important issue. Let's see. I was invited by the Center of Help. The Center of Help is a nonprofit here in Annapolis whose mission is to empower, educate, and connect immigrant resources to promote self-sufficiency and to advocate for the successful integration of immigrant communities in Anne Arundel County and our surrounding areas. The reason I'm here is to tell you, new Hispanic voter, you eligible voters, to go and vote, and to say to you why voting is essential and why you should vote. Why is voting important? Well, if you don't vote, you're giving up your voice. Did you know that young voters across the country account for half the voting population? That makes us a powerful force. Our voice directly influences issues that might affect our lives for years to come. This year, new Hispanics and Latinx are expected to be the nation's largest ethnic minority. And as I said earlier, it's a whopping 32 million new Latino voters. So let's use our voices. Let's be bold, loud, and proud. Let's show up and make a statement that we're not wasting this opportunity. Voting is also important because your community depends on it. Please represent those who can't vote. Speak up for those whose voices are silenced. Voting is an opportunity for change, and now more than ever, exercising your right will help be that change. Our communities face challenging issues like immigration raids, unsafe workplace, racial profiling by law enforcement, DACA in jeopardy, and many more issues. The only way these issues will be discussed and treated fairly is when you put our voices in the conversation and vote for leaders who understand and support the issues we face. Vote, because if you don't fight for your interests, who will? Maybe you are indecisive about voting. Perhaps you aren't interested in politics. You think your vote may or may not make a difference. But then the candidate you know nothing about or maybe dislike wins. Well, this government official is in a position of power who will make changes in policies and that may affect you and your community. Don't deny yourself the opportunity to have a say. Vote for those who can't. There are 60 million Hispanics in the States. And while our population has grown rapidly in recent decades, many aren't eligible to vote. Out of the 60 million, only about half can. Remember the 32 million? Since only half can vote, only half can be represented. Please represent your community members who can't. Remember, when your vote may represent members of your family and your community who aren't eligible. Vote for progress. Voting for progress is fundamental because one administration to the next can set us back not just years, but sometimes decades. So help elect officials who are progressive and aligned with your views and goals. So again, why should you vote? You should vote for issues that matter to you. Issues like healthcare, student debt, voting rights, education, immigration, deportation of deportation of veterans, kids of immigrants in detention centers, gun violence, police brutality, fair pay, the environment, and many more issues. Voting is your civic duty. Don't forget that we are in the midst of a pandemic. Everyone is struggling either emotionally, physically, financially, or mentally. The families that are hit the hardest are minority families, and we are amongst them. We need representatives that will advocate for our needs. We need individuals that will speak up for us, and that starts with you. This wave of new Hispanic voters isn't at random. It came from our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents' sacrifice seeking a better life, better opportunities, hope, a future for the American dream. This year is a manifestation of that dream. So honor our ancestors by voting. They who left their homeland, their families, all they knew. They came here with no money, not knowing the language or culture, only the clothes on their backs. And all they knew is that if they work hard, they could salir adelante. You are the flower blossoming from all those generations of careful cultivation so that you could have this opportunity. Please don't waste it. Go vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dalix, for all of that. Lastly, to wrap up our discussion here, Dennis, can you give us your thoughts on why it's so important for students to vote and to be involved in civic engagement?
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here. My name is Dennis, and I wanna say just a few things because the light say like a lot. That's important. But for the students, it's really important to go to both because there's a lot of different issues that we're having as students in Maryland, but not just in Maryland, but in different states. So I think it's really important to consider to go and hit the pools and vote whatever how you can. It doesn't matter how you vote, but it's really important to do it. And I wanna share a little bit of history. We know that the first article of the Constitution determined the members of the Senate and House of Representatives will be elected directly by popular vote. The president, however, will be elected not by direct vote, but rather by electoral college representative vote per state, typically based on the state's population. And this is really important because a lot of people don't know this part. So they believe because the popular vote doesn't choose the president, we're not gonna vote or we are not gonna do it because of that. But the truth is that if you ever think that just one vote in a sea of million cannot make so much a difference, considering some of the closest elections in the U.S. So your vote may not be direct elect the president, but if your vote joins enough others in your voting district or county, your vote undoubtedly matters when it comes to elect. So as we know, elections have consequences, but we have the power to decide on the quality of life we want for ourselves and for our future generations. Voting is our chance to stand up for those issues we care. This is our life. Take the time to decide what's best. Remember that if you don't vote, someone else will make the decision for you. Like Dalek say, the community depends on our vote. So that's what I highly I highly recommend all the college students that go out and vote because it's really important. And we need more improvements in our main issues. That's the main reason to talk for all the students. There's a lot of different things that we still need in our community, and we'll still make those things happen because it's our vote, it's our voice. So please go out and vote.
Okay, now let's move on to answer your questions.
Can I say something? I have to step up to my academic achievement meeting. But before I go, I wanted to excuse myself, but I also wanted to just say how proud I am to be in a panel with some of our wonderful, talented Eagle stars of Prince George's public school system. Jocelyn, thank you for doing this for us, is showing up for us. And I saw that you had your support. Our student board member, Ms. Nia Jackson, was here too. And Henry, although you're not here with me and Dennis, and you're not part of Prince George's, I just want to give you guys kudos and continue to do what you do. You're going to get so far. And yes, I need you to get a good job so then you pay my Social Security. You know, I have to have that when I get older. So, and I say this to my young people because I believe you guys are the future of tomorrow. So thank you for allowing me to be here. Bye-bye, guys.
Right. So it looks like we have someone. We have a few questions, but mostly I think everybody wants to hear one more time from Dr. Celaya. If you can go over one more time those important deadlines, and especially the October 20th deadline. I think it's so important to stress one more time the difference between postmark date and the received by date.
Good, thank you. So the voter registration deadline in the state of Maryland is tomorrow, mañana, tomorrow, mañana. Okay, so by all means, once again, turn off your TikTok, text the word vote to 77788, and you could also share this with your loved one. In Spanish is vota, V-O-T-A, to the same number. That's a postmark deadline, which means if you walk and you print your application and you walk into the post office, make sure you get that postmark no later than 5 p.m. because the majority of the post offices in the state of Maryland closes at 5. Do not drop off that letter in your neighborhood box, assuming that the postmaster will pick it up today, that day, or tomorrow. And if they pick it up tomorrow, which is the following day, the 14th, it's going to be postmarked the 14th or 15th. As an election administrator, it's not timely, and we will not process it. If you do miss the deadline, okay, then you could leverage same-day voter registration during early voting and on election day. So from the 26th of October through the 3rd of November, November 3rd is election day, early voting is the 26th to the 2nd of November. You could bring your Maryland driver's license, permit, or ID. If you don't have those 3 forms of ID, a bank statement, utility bill, governmental document with your name and current address for that corresponding county. And now, if you have a desire to vote by mail and you want to get a packet from the State Board of Elections, text the 3 letters VBM for vote by mail, VBM to 77788, or in Spanish, VPC for votar por correo, VPC to 77788. And that's a receive deadline. So your local Board of Elections must have that application, whether it's online or in the paper version, in their office no later than the following Tuesday, which is October 20th. So it's important that one is a postmark, which is the voter registration, and the other one is a received of Tuesday, October 20th.
It looks like we got some questions. The first question is, are only citizens eligible to vote?
Great question. Yes, in order to be registered to vote, you have to be 16 years of age to register to vote or pre-register, but you must be 18 by or before November 3rd. You must be a U.S. citizen, U.S. born or naturalized, and live in Maryland. So great question. Some cities like Tacoma Park do allow U.S. residents or individuals living in the municipality or the city limits could vote, but because this is a federal election, you must be a U.S. citizen, you must be 18 to vote, but you could be 17 or 16 to register. And if you're under 18, you'll be good to go for 2022, which will be the midterm elections.
Another question we received are, I received a mail-in ballot and have not, I requested a mail-in ballot and have not received it yet. What should I do?
Okay, so you have a couple of options. Depending, the big question is, when did you apply? If you applied yesterday, you're not gonna get it tomorrow. Okay, you have to give it some time to be processed because number one, we have to verify that you are registered in the state of Maryland. And once that's confirmed, then the corresponding local board of elections will process your request. And then the state will receive that data and through their vendor will make this ballot packet and they will mail it to you. Now, having said that, these are your three options to cure that. Number one, you could visit your local board of elections, Google it, and you could go in person. They have office hours. Montgomery County is Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 p.m. We're implementing physical social distancing, so we're allowing 6 people at any given time in our lobby. Every county is different. Number two, you could text the 3 letters VBM or VPC in Spanish and reapply for a second issue. That first issue ballot will be canceled and then you should submit that second issue ballot. Or number 3, then you could download an application and mail that, but it must be received by the 20th of October. And the last option, let's say you don't even receive the ballots, right? Because it does take some time. Then you could vote in person during the date stated from the 26th of October through November 3rd. However, you will need to vote a provisional ballot because it could be by the time they process the application and they mailed it out to you, it's October 26th or 27th. So in our database, it's going to say that you requested to vote by mail. So you'll vote a provisional, but do not worry. Our staff will investigate and research to see why is it that Mr. Martinez voted provisionally. We will notice that on his record, he requested to vote by mail, but for whatever reason, he never mailed it back. So your provisional ballot will be accepted. So at any time, they can't find you in the voter registration list. If they can't locate your record, then demand a provisional ballot and the local board of elections will do their due diligence to ensure that that ballot gets counted.
Another question from social media. Are there any physical places where I can drop off my mail-in ballot and where can I find that information?
Okay, so depending on your county, we have 24 counties in Baltimore City. I could only brag about Montgomery County, okay? So Montgomery County right now, we have 25 ballot drop boxes, but we will have a total of 50 before the onset of early voting. If you live in Montgomery County, you could text right now the word box, B-O-X, and your zip code, or buzón, which is the translated word for in Spanish, and your zip code, and the system will give you the 4 closest ballot drop boxes, address, location, and also the corresponding link to the closest post office. If you live in a different county or Baltimore City, you could go to elections@maryland.gov, elections@maryland.gov, and I'm gonna put this in the chat, and you could find your corresponding ballot drop boxes. But also, every single voter in Maryland, their corresponding local board of elections should have mailed them what is called a sample ballot. For Montgomery County, it's blue, it's bilingual. Starting from the middle, it's in Spanish. The first couple of pages is in English. But every corresponding county must mail their voters a sample ballot. And then that information is all the information needed about the ballot drop boxes and or Just Google your corresponding local Board of Elections for more information on your local Board of Elections website.
The next question we have received is, can I help my parents who are eligible to vote register and send in mail-in ballots?
Yes, you could assist your parents to register to vote. And then when they do request to vote by mail, in the form, especially if you live in Montgomery or Prince George's County, the whole packet is bilingual. It's in English and Spanish. Now, if you live in a different county like Baltimore or Wicomico or Frederick County, unfortunately, it's only in English. And this is where our young folks step in. Growing up, I'm a Salvadorian American. I'm a first generation. And just like you guys, I'm pretty sure all you guys are informal professional interpreters and translators. So it's nothing new for us, right? So you will get your documents that's in English and read it. Léeselo a tu mamá y a tu papá, okay? And then you tell them, and you could help them. You're not gonna make the selections for them. You cannot do that. But if your mom or dad or tu abuelita, abuelito says, circle Mickey Mouse, then you circle Mickey Mouse, and that's it. However, there's a document called Certification of Person Assisting Voter. In Montgomery County and Prince George's, it's bilingual. You will need to fill this out, you and the voter, your parent or grandparent, and you will insert it into the return envelope with your ballot. The ballot in Montgomery County is 2 pages. Every county is different. It's cardstock, so ours is double-sided. Please, by all means, use a black or blue ballpoint pen. If it doesn't click, it's not a pen, okay? Do not use a marker, do not use a highlighter, do not use crayons, do not use mascara. We've seen it all. Use a black or dark blue pen, because what's gonna happen is the scanners won't be able to scan your ballot if it's in crayon, okay? But nonetheless, we will help you. And lastly, if you did all of that, register to vote, request to vote by mail, you help your grandparents vote, you fill out the voter assistance form, you put in the information and the ballot, please don't forget to sign the oath. If you don't sign the voter oath, we're not gonna scan it, but we will call you and we'll ask, Senora Martinez, I need for you to come to the Montgomery County Board of Elections to fix your ballot because you forgot to sign it, okay? Now, if your local Board of Elections is close to your home, great. But if it's far, you need to find a way to get to the office to sign that return envelope.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Ms. Peña-Melnick, were you about to speak?
Yes, thank you so much. I would like to add to that in Anne Arundel County, I represent the 21st District, which is Prince George's and Anne Arundel. In Anne Arundel County, there was a group that was going around different homes collecting the ballots. They were already completed, and that is a scam. Anne Arundel County Board of Election put out actually a press release saying if anyone comes to your home requesting your ballots, do not give it to them. The Board of Election, and Dr. Zelaya can confirm this, does not send anyone to your home to pick up your ballot. They do not do that. Don't give up your ballot. Okay, that is a scam. Also, last week, I received, honestly, about 5 calls from different Latinos in the community asking me to help them guide, sort of explain the ballot, right? There are different questions, question 1 and 2. There's different actually policies at the county level as well. There are judges that are running as well. So the League of Women Voters guide is really excellent. It's in English and in Spanish, and it's the League of Women's Voter Guide. And you can actually go to their website or vote411.org as well. Okay, so you have to read a little, inform yourself about what is question 1, what is question 2, who are these judges, because it's not only a presidential election, there's also a lot of local officials and local policies that affect you that you're going to vote on as well. But there is help out there. Okay, vote411.org. Or look at the League of Women Voters Guide, and they go through it beautifully. They explain everything. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for that. Kind of just to repeat what you and Dr. Zelaya was saying, help your tias and tios and abuelitas, abuelitos. Even I growing up, I was the one answering the phone and everything. And there's a lot of people that don't want to see us use our voice and don't want us to represent. So definitely helping out with that, because there's a lot of people who are scamming or doing a lot of things online. So just making sure that we're staying on top of that. Another question that we got from social media was, how can I help spread the word about voting?
Carla.
Use your social media networks, right? Let's take advantage of all those contacts that we have. Take pictures of yourself filling out your ballot, depositing it in the mailbox or in the ballot boxes. Challenging people. All right, let's do a challenge. Let's take a picture. Who can also get out the vote? Do it in English and in Spanish. So those are just some of my ideas. But I did want to say that you hear people saying plan. Like, what are they talking about? What's this plan thing? And what we have to remember is that we are in a pandemic. So we don't know what's going to happen on election day. Are the lines going to be 5 hours long? Is it going to be raining? Is it going to be storming? And you're not going to want to stand in line in the rain, in the cold. So make a plan so you can avoid the long lines. That's why people tell you to vote by mail, because you can just put it in the mail or put it in the election box and you're done. There's going to be lines, right, Dr. Zelaya? So
Yeah,
if you don't want to wait in line, vote by mail. But if you want to vote early voting, make sure you know when you're going to go, when the downtimes are, when you have time, so that you get it done. You don't want to wait to the last day and say there's a 4-hour wait or a 2-hour wait and I don't have time. That's not acceptable, people. We got to make a plan so that we get it done, and we encourage other people to do so.
And to back up with board member Silvestre, one thing that I take personally as a man of color is when the press says Board of Elections disenfranchising. Why would I want to disenfranchise myself and the community I serve? So I just put on the chat in Montgomery County specifically, so I apologize this, but if you text the letters EV and your zip code during early voting, you will get the 4 closest early voting locations and the wait times. So if you see that the Wheaton High School has a 20-minute wait, and Montgomery Blair has an hour wait, and the Silver Spring Civic Building has an hour and a half, that's local if you want to wait an hour and a half in Silver Spring. So obviously go to Wheaton High School. It's a no-brainer, right? And so we have some tools that we have for our voters, but contact your local Board of Elections and ask. You have to make a vote plan. And like I said, if you're the type of person that don't like lines, but you don't like waiting, but you don't mind waiting online on Black Friday for the 90-inch TV or the new Xbox 50, go ahead, but you have to make a plan, and we will do our best to ensure that we could serve every single voter showing up on election day or during early voting. And in Montgomery County, by law, the reason why everything is in English and Spanish is because the Department of Justice handed our consent decree, which means that under Section 203 of the 1975 Voter Rights Act, everything is in English and Spanish, including identifying bilingual competent English-Spanish speakers in every single vote center, whether it's early voting or election day. And I know that Prince George's County also does a big effort to have bilingual staff in their voting locations. So we do our best. However, quickly, you could bring a loved one, a family member, you could ask a voter or the election judge at the location to assist you. That person doesn't have to be a citizen, they don't have to be of age. So just like, you're gonna help your tia and your tío, and even if you're 12 years of age, that individual could help that voter if need be. But in Montgomery County, we will have bilingual staff in every single vote center, but you have to make that vote plan and use the tools accordingly.
And if I may add something, look, I'm going to just be very blunt. As a policymaker, when we have a policy that is very difficult to pass, that has a big fiscal note, or that certain groups do not come, people say, well, that group doesn't vote, right? Latinos do not vote. Latinos do not come to the hearing. they do not write or send emails. I'm going to tell you, elections have consequences. We, people of color, we're usually an afterthought. If you look at COVID-19, okay, the disparities, they affect Black and Latinos. Okay, Black and Latinos, why? It's not just access to healthcare. It is all those social determinants of health, where we live, how much money we make, the environment we live in. We're essential workers. We take public transportation. If you don't vote, they take us for granted. We are powerful. We have the numbers. Okay, we have the numbers. We can make a difference. There's no excuse for not voting here at all. If you miss the deadline tomorrow, you can vote early. I voted for that, okay? If you cannot register, okay, during early voting, then Dr. Salah just said, you can do it again. You have, another opportunity to do it on November 3rd. So there's no excuse at all. At all, there's no excuse. We must show up so we can be respected, so we can count. We need more of us in the room. Otherwise, we become an afterthought. There's a saying that says if you're not at the dinner table, you become the meal. You must vote.
And
I'm sorry.
we're so lucky that in the state of Maryland, our legislature has made it so that we can register on the day of the election. That's unheard of in this country. So let's use the privileges that we've been given to back up with what Jocelyn had just said.
Okay, we have one last question, and this is a 3-part question. It says, I am worried about the whole double ballot problem that was in the news. Can you clarify what it is and what happened and how could it impact my vote? Or what do I do if I receive 2 ballots? I heard this happened somewhere else. Is this something we should be worried about in the state of Maryland?
No, so what happened with the double ballot is, so I'm gonna use myself as an example. So my name is Gilberto Zelaya. And let's say I registered to vote when I was 18. And then I went to college, I graduated, I'm in grad school. And then for whatever reason, I registered at events or online or what have you. But this time I put Gilberto Alejandro Zelaya, right? For us, that's a totally new record. Even if it's the same date of birth, could be the same address or a different address. So now what happens is I have one ballot that says Gilberto Zelaya and one that says Gilberto A. Zelaya. So what's gonna happen is if you made a request and you didn't remember if you applied with an A or without an A, and you sent 2 submissions, you're gonna get 2 ballots. So what I advise you is send one, right? Keep the other, and then email your local board of elections and update your record. So right now, if you text the word check, C-H-E-C-K, to 77788, and I put it on the chat, you could update and review your voter registration record. And it's in Espanol, es revise, right, to 77788. And you could contact your local board of elections, because then what they'll do is they're going to merge your record. So there's only one record. So the Gilberto Zelaya and the Gilberto A. Zelaya will be merged and it'll be one record. And at any time when you move out, so let's say you're a high school senior, and let's say if all goes well with COVID-19 and you get accepted, let's say to Berkeley, or you're going to the military, and you register to vote after maybe 2 years of being on campus, then make sure that you also contact the Maryland State Board of Elections to say, you know, Jaslyn Leonoso is now a student in California and she doesn't live here in Maryland. But let's say she graduates and she comes back to work here for the Maryland legislators as a page or an intern, then she could re-register in Maryland. Then we will contact the California State Board of Elections that Jaslyn is no longer a registered voter in California. She's back here in Maryland. So you need, here's a huge urban myth. When you move, and even if it's in the same apartment complex, from like say apartment 101 to the 5th floor, for me as an election administrator, that's a totally different address. We cannot legally forward anything from the Maryland State Board of Elections or your local Board of Elections to that new address. You're gonna get your credit cards, you're gonna get your coupons, you're gonna get your Jerry Sub coupons, you're gonna get everything forwarded to your new address. but the sample ballot, or for example, in the primary, when Hogan declared that every voter would get their ballot, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of ballots returned back to the Board of Elections. And then everyone yelled disenfranchisement, but the problem is that the voters never updated their record. So you have to do your part. Remember, all roads lead back to the Board of Elections. All roads lead back to the Board of Elections. But if you don't make a vote plan, then things will arise. And this is a reason why I applaud this webinar. And if something doesn't smell right, you demand a provisional ballot. And that provisional ballot application submission will also update your voter registration application after the election. So you will be good to go for 2022. So you guys need to do your part. We will do ours.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Those are all our questions. Thank you so much again to our student moderators. One more round of applause for them. They were so amazing. Yes, before we entirely close out, I want to hand it over to anybody else who has anything they want to say before we officially wrap up. To anybody who has any more last comments.
I just want to say that I really do hope that the future of the Latino community will be strong and that we finally get some true representation and our voice to be heard in local, state, and federal. And that's just what I hope for the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, Harry, you bring up a really great point, is that I think sometimes the national level of elections, like federal government, gets so much attention that we forget that about the local elections sometimes. And I think Mrs. Silvestre brought this up as well, is that our local, and Delegate Peña-Melnick, right, our local elections, those judges, those Board of Education members, they're just as important. So that's a really great point. We need to see representation on every level if possible. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say that the state of Maryland, just like the country, is changing. The Latinos are the fastest growing population, and we have to be counted. So a little plug before we leave about the census. We still can fill out our census until the last day of October. So if you haven't done your census, or if you're doing get out the vote efforts through social media, plug the census as well, because if we're not counted, same problem. We don't know how many Latinos live in Arundel County. We get uncounted in Frederick. We get undercounted in Montgomery. You know, the reason we have bilingual ballots and everything in the Board of Elections in Montgomery County is because we've been counting how many Latinos speak Spanish in Montgomery County. And then we reached a certain threshold where they said, oh, above this threshold, everybody has to have a ballot in English and in Spanish. So get counted. That's part of the process. And get out the vote.
Absolutely.
And I would just say, thank you so much for having me. And it was an honor to be with all of you. You know, and a question was asked earlier regarding how do you get the vote out, you know, on social media. I would say before you do that, start with your family. Call your abuelos, your tíos, your primos, tus hermanos, tus amigos, all the groups that you belong to. Did they vote? And you'll be surprised. And someone is going to need help. So you go to their home, or, you know, get on a video call and walk them through it. But we have to empower our families, you know, our friends, you know, because it's so important. As Carla said earlier, and Dalix, your vote is your voice. And let me tell you, in Annapolis, when we're voting on all these important issues that affect you, if you're not in the room, you know, it's very difficult to be seen, right? Which is why we need representation that looks like all of us, but you also need to vote and get active and involved, okay? Respectfully, I ask you to do that. It's so simple, so easy.
Same, I want to reiterate that. You have to be registered to vote. You have to participate. Also, we are assisting our Office of Community Partnerships, and I put on the chat, you could text the word census in English or censo in Spanish to 77788. We've lent them our texting capabilities to amplify our voice. So censo or census to 77788. Secondly, also, for those individuals who are naturalized citizens, I highly recommend that you really consider becoming a naturalized, you're a US resident, I highly recommend you become a naturalized citizen. Están acá, no se van a regresar. You know that for a fact, okay? You're not going anywhere. You know, you're not here for 5 years, que vamos a recaudar un poquito de dinero y lo regresamos, vamos a comprar un terreno. You're here, you're not going anywhere, okay? So yes, it is an investment of time, but it is cheaper in the long run than reapplying every 5 years, number one. Number two, the other thing too, if you're 50 years of age, and you've been living in the US as a legal resident for 20 years, you could take the interview, the 5 questions they ask in Spanish, Chinese, whatever language you want. There's an exception to the rule. And I know a lot of people say, que no hablo bien el inglés, no quiero hacerlo porque me da pena. You could do it in Spanish, but you have to be at least 50 and been living in the US for 20 years as a legal resident, or 55 years of age and 15 years, not necessarily consecutive, for 15 years, and you could bypass the English requirement to become a naturalized citizen. Yes, es un poco caro, but in the long run, you spend more money on your 90-inch TV. So do it, you're here, and then once that te jubilas, then you go back to terreno and you can enjoy the rest of your tercera edad.
All right, absolutely. Thank you again to everybody. Thank you for everybody who tuned in this afternoon, evening. We really appreciate everyone's participation. Make sure you stay connected with us, everyone here. You can absolutely reach out to the Latino Caucus. Thank you again to Mayor Gavin Buckley. He had to step away because, you know, everybody's really, really busy right now. So thank you again to him for, especially his office, for helping coordinate all of this. And thank you again to all of our panelists and all of our students and all of our all the hope that we got to put this on together. So thank you again. Take care, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone.